Hello, I'm Jack from Shure, and we are here in a chapel in Essex recording an artist called RAHH. And this has been a really interesting space to work in today. It's a kind of funny shape. It's quite a small, well, it's a small chapel really, but because it's a chapel, we've got these hard surfaces, we've got this lovely floor, we've got these big windows. So as you can probably hear in the vocal that you're hearing right now, sound is bouncing off of all directions, and you know it's not a negative sounding space by any means. It has some character, but it has presented some opportunities to capture things in a really nice way. So we were really keen for this particular shoot to use an acoustic piano, and that's what we've done. The piano doesn't normally live here. We rented the piano in, especially with a piano tuner, so there was a slightly interesting moment this morning of trying to get the piano into this tiny chapel. But it happened, and it worked, and it's been tuned, and it's sounding absolutely fantastic in here. With those reflective surfaces, there's lots of low end flying around all over the place, lots of really interesting low-mid frequencies that we're working with. And the lineup for the session is piano, cello, and then we've got two vocalists. So when it came to deciding which mics to use, I started with figuring out the best way to get a good piano sound. And with our portfolio, it was always going to be a pair of KSM 137s on our stereo bar in an XY configuration. And what this is doing is, I mean, there's a lot of piano noise in the room anyway, so we're going to get a lot of bleed into the other microphones. But the KSM 137s really complement that in a mix. If it's a very bleedy room, there's lots of other stuff going in, I can use those 137s to just pick out those key frequencies that I want to make that mix live and breathe a bit nicer. Knowing that that was where we were going to start, I wanted to think about what to do with the second instrument, which is the cello. And a cello is a really interesting instrument because there's lots of low energy, but a really lovely amount of top-end detail as well. There's a certain frequency in a cello that just really pops out nicely, and the cellist has bought a really nice model today as well, so it does sound particularly good. We started with a KSM 313, which is a ribbon microphone, but there was just a bit too much room noise in it. Ribbon microphone has equal audio from both sides, and it just wasn't really working for the space. It wasn't quite bright enough. So in the end, we've used a KSM 44A in a cardioid pattern, which is just delivering all the goods. We get that really nice cello sound. It's capturing everything really crisply. And meaning that the back end of this track, the backbone, the piano and the cello, the relationship between those two is working really, really well in the mix so far. So with those bits sorted, we just needed to turn to vocal. Now initially I wanted to try KSM 8s to try and counter some of that ambience in the room, you know, something very directional and dynamic rather than a big open cardioid. And that was working really well for the backing vocal on the piano. But the vocalist, Holly, has got this huge dynamic range to her singing, and in this particular song that we're doing, it starts really subtly and it ends as this big, huge performance, you know, sort of big, loud moments in there. And I really wanted to capture that in a really believable way, and the best way to do that is at source. And in the end, I opted to go for another KSM 44A, which is our large diaphragm condenser microphone in a cardioid pattern, and that is complementing the frequencies in the cello really nicely. It's complementing the frequencies in the piano really nicely. It's a bit roomy, but it's such a small space and we've got such loud instruments. I don't think there's a huge amount we're gonna do to resolve that too much with mic choice. And the KSM 44 sounds so good on the vocal that I'm kind of willing to compromise just to get that. So that's the mic setup today. I hope this has been really useful and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.